One of the biggest reasons your client fails to achieve goals while you're working with them is because of the wrong ways of goal setting. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly the mistakes that you might be making when you're doing goal setting with your clients, and also show you some correct ways, some of the ways to look at goal setting that will actually help them get results in their lives. So the first thing, most common mistake people make with goal setting is they set absolute goals. So this is what normal goal setting looks like. I am making $1,000 and I want to start making $10,000. An absolute goal and an absolute number. Worse still is sometimes this absolute goal would have a hypothetical timeline, especially in the first few months. So if you say, oh, well, I want to go to $10,000 by the end of year, more often than not, you will find yourself or your client saying, all right, in 6 months, I should have everything set up and I should already be making $8,000 a month or some obscure number like that. So for whatever reason, we believe 80% of the results should happen the first 6 months of the first half of our entire timeline, and the rest is only going to be the remaining 20%. You might have recognized that because that also projects into how our activities look like, right? When you make a marketing calendar or a business calendar or a life calendar with your clients or for yourself, you might have noticed that the first 6 months, the first 6 weeks, the first half of the entire project looks really busy, but the later half kind of dwindles away. Seems like everything needs to happen right now. Well, that's one of the classic mistakes of goal setting. First mistake is that you set absolute goals. When you set an absolute goal, like going from 1,000 to $10,000, you have delayed your gratification until you hit this number. This means that when you're going day after day, slogging, working really hard, but you're not seeing the result, every single day you feel defeated. Every single day, you don't see progress, you feel like it's not going to work. And that's exactly why a lot of the times your clients and you give up on your goals much before you even had a real shot of making them happen. And that is why absolute goals don't work. So every single time you've seen yourself or your client to set a six-pack app goal or a $10,000 goal, you know you've set yourself up for failure because of the absolute nature of the goal. Now, what I'm not discounting is that goal setting in general works. It's not that setting goals is wrong, but absolute goals, that's where the mistake lies. Now, sometimes what also happens is the opposite of absolute goals happen, and that is setting very, very vague goals. This is how you might have found some of your clients to operate. Some of your clients go, well, I am here right now, and you know what would be really nice? And they give one vision of themselves. And then what would be really nice? And then there'll be another vision of themselves. And what would be really nice is a third vision of themselves. They have so many different variants of goals that they want to chase that they are not really committed to any of them fully and confidently. They're almost hedging their bets because they're not sure if one of them will ever be realized. While that might sound like a good startup strategy sometimes, it's often a terrible strategy when it comes to goal setting. And that is because when you have three really vague goals, it is more likely that you will pursue each one of them a little bit and then start quitting on them pretty soon on all of them because none of them were clear, confident plan A. When you set your plan A, it needs to be definitive. It needs to be something that's ambitious, that is something that you're really chasing. But the plan B can be a realistic approach to the same plan A. So while you can't be overly specific with your goals, you don't also want to be overly vague with your goals, which is probably what your clients end up doing. So, firstly, let's identify if your clients are setting really specific goals or really vague goals. Really specific goals won't work, and really vague goals won't work either. So, if you ask your client, hey, I know you've set yourself up with this really specific goal, ask them also, how would you know that you've made progress? How would you know that you're moving in the right direction? Is it the process that is really making you feel successful every day, or it is the goal that will make you feel successful? How would you have a daily recalibration, that acceptance of yourself that you did your best that day and you made some progress? And if that's not the case, how would you really motivate yourself every day after the first, second, or third week? See, one of the biggest reasons a person or a client may give up on their goals is because they're just not motivated enough. They don't think it will ever happen. they lose motivation, they lose drive, they lose the intentionality that they started with because they think it's just not going to happen. So become present to daily action if somebody is being really specific about their goals. If somebody is being incredibly vague about their goals, ask them to make a choice. Ask them which of the two goals are more important to you. If, let's say, this was goal one, this was goal two, this was goal three. So if you had to absolutely choose, which one would you choose, one or two? And ask them to make a decision. If, let's say, they choose two, you say, if you had to choose between two and three, which one would you choose? Let's say, if say three, we know our winner is three, and this is the specific goal that really fills them up. If they say two again, we'll know two is the special winner in this scenario. And so even if they have to choose two goals, now we know three and two are the right options to choose because they might have outweighed three. And so three and two are the only ones to chase, and one can completely be ignored. And that allows you to create a little bit more groundedness to the goal instead of just so much vagueness of what could happen, and all and everything is potential. Now, these were the wrong ways and how to navigate them when you're doing goal setting with your clients. Now, let's take one step further. What are some of the right ways to set goals with your clients? The first and one of my favorite ways to set goals with my clients is to, instead of doing just, hey, where are we chasing? What are we chasing? I do what is called the wheel of life with them. I would say, hey, I know you've hired me to help you with your career. I know you want to make more money, but will you be happy and satisfied if you had a bad relationship? Or would you be happy and satisfied if your health kind of took a toll? Would you be happy and satisfied if you had no spiritual practice? If you had no friends? If you didn't do anything for fun? If you didn't have any parenting that was taken care of, like you and your kids, they were solid or not? Right? And these are just some of the areas. You can expand it to what works for you and what works for them. But usually, a more comprehensive approach to life allows for you and your clients to work on something that is a little bit more significant, a little bit more important, a little bit more day to day versus this arbitrary number that they might have just decided that they want to pursue, but they don't really have a real reason to pursue it. Let me give you an example. Very often, I get to sit with entrepreneurs, and they always would be like, hey, Ajit, I want to make this much money, right? I want to make $1 million. I want to make $10 million. And when I ask them that question, I go, okay, that's great. We can get to $10 million. That's actually fairly easy, which is true. It's actually fairly easy to get to $10 million. The challenge often lies is for making this 10 million, people would sacrifice their relationship or would become really not present parents. And so I ask, hey, listen, you could have the $10 million day or $10 million year business. What would your life look like then? What would your life look like as a $10 million founder? And then eventually, what tends to happen is that, well, if I was making $10 million, I would hang out with my friends and I would take this evening off with my wife. And then I would really like to drop my kids to school. I would love to go on a vacation every 6 months. And I would definitely be working out. I would really need to take care of my body. And I would like to meditate maybe 10 minutes a day or some version of that. And the moment I get that idea from them, I know that they are actually looking for a full life. $10 million is just a chase that they have. So the arbitrary timeline they might have set for themselves, which is say 1 year or 2 year or 5 years, is an arbitrary timeline. It's not the timeline that they actually care for if 10 million happens. What they care for is this life, which we call the perfect day, is what they really care for. The perfect day is a day that you define clearly in your mind, which says, how would you wake up? How would you do? What would you do in the afternoon? What kind of work are you doing? What kind of friendships you have? What kind of family do you have? What kind of other activities that you might have in the day to make it the absolute perfect day? Now, what we find is when a client defines the perfect day, they start incorporating a lot more of their life in that perfect day. And because they're incorporating a lot of their life in that perfect day, it becomes a much clearer vision of what they're trying to create. They're not attached to the money, they're attached to the perfect day. And when they're attached to the perfect day, they live with a lot more intention, adding gratification at multiple levels every single day. So say, for example, there was a founder that was working with you. They were trying to do the same chase, $10 million annually. And they go, in my perfect day, I drop my kids to school every day. They could start doing that right now. They don't need $10 million to be able to drop their kids every day to school, right? Or I would like to have a date night with my wife once a week. They could do that right now. They don't have to wait for $10 million to happen for them to start living that life. And if those were true, in their perfect day, they could check off maybe 6 to 8 items out of 20 right now, creating an instant gratification, instant sense of joy to say, hey, I get to live half of my perfect day every single day. And because I have awareness of it, and because I'm getting to live it, now I can build the remaining half. And I know when I'm making a sacrifice, and I know when I'm not making a sacrifice, because I most likely don't need to make a sacrifice to build a life that I truly want. And so that allows us to be able to give more dimension, more gravity to the vision that they have. And they don't wake up one day just dissatisfied with the pursuit. And because of that, they sacrificed everything. They get to chase something exciting, something super fun, but at the same point of time, they get to live their life. So that's the first model I like to do with my clients, which is to find the wheel of life for them, what's important to them, find the priorities for them. Sometimes it is 4 categories, sometimes it's 8 categories, sometimes it's all 12 of them. How to use Wheel of Life to coach anyone is a video we made for you a few months ago. Go ahead, find that link below if you want to know how to use the Wheel of Life. But you could use whatever version of this that you choose to use, right? Because your client might have different priorities. They might not care for the entire wheel, but it will give you at least the categories and how to use it. Now, with that, that's my first model that I really like to work with clients who want to do goal setting and help them get to goal getting, right? The second model that I really, really like is by a gentleman called Cameron Harold. Cameron is a friend of mine, and he created this wonderful book that I absolutely love and highly recommend to everyone in business or otherwise. And the book is called Vivid Vision. Vivid Vision is an idea where instead of setting goals and KPIs for business, you write what would be happening to the business, say 3, 5, or 10 years from now. So say, for example, a lot of times companies would set visions like this, right? In 5 years from now, we would be making $100 million, right? That's the vision, right? And or we'll be dominating force in X community, right? Or whatever marketplace, right? That's kind of how businesses set visions for their business. And that's kind of how we do it for life too, right? We have some absolute things that we want, 3, 4, 5 things. But let's think about if your life or your business had a bunch of team players, which you need to have, right? If you're building $100 million company, even $1 million company, you're going to have team members. If you have a family, that's kind of like your team, right? Your kids are part of your team, your wife's part of your team, your husband's part of your team, your parents are part of your team, his or her parents are part of the team. If you have any help at the house, help is part of the team. All of you are part of a team. How many of the team members would get excited just with the number that you want to chase? In any of the scenarios, they are not excited about it, right? Even in family or in work, they're not necessarily excited about it. For that matter, a lot of the times, they're not even bought into it, right? If you tell your partner, hey, you want to build $100 million company, their reaction would tell you if they actually are bought into it or not. Because a lot of the times they don't care. They don't care about your $100 million company. They care about them and you having a good date night, right? And because of that, you have to kind of onboard them to really paint a picture of what it means for you to build that company or have that income, have that career. And we forget to do that. We forget to onboard our team on the vision that we have for life. So, say, for example, this was an entrepreneur you were working with, 5-year vision, $10 million, $100 million where they want to get to, right? Instead of just saying, all right, that's the vision of the company, what Cameron says is write down what that company would mean. Like what it would mean for the human resource of the company, what it would mean for the culture of the company, what would it mean for the clients of the company, what would it mean for the processes in the company, what would it mean for the marketing of the company. Now, what's happening here is if this was a company, the HR team is excited about the HR part of the vision. The culture team is excited about the culture, or the overall team is excited about the culture of the vision of the company. Clients, the customer support team, the people who are really taking care of your client, the product team is excited about the results for the clients. Your operation team loves the processes vision. Your marketing team loves the marketing vision. And now because they all love these different segments of the vision, you have a vision that everybody is bought into. Same is for your family. Instead of setting an absolute vision, which is a number, a house, a thing that you want to get, if you have subsets of that, there's different parts of your family, different people in your family that will be excited about it. Say, for example, in your family vision, family vivid vision, you took holidays or grandparents is one of the categories. Your grandparents will be really excited to read that vision, right? Or your kids' grandparents. If you have kids as a part of the vision, you say, hey, kids and kids culture. It might be that they get really excited about how you're introducing kid-centric holidays because now you're running $100 million company. So go ahead and get your client to get invited into the idea of Vivid Vision, because Vivid Vision is this very, very powerful, profound, and amazing tool that truly can change the way you look at your family, the way you look at your business, and how it will be moving forward from there. If you want to know more about Vivid Vision, we'll link up the book link so you can order a copy for yourself. The book is called Vivid Vision. Literally, that's the name. And in Mind Valley, you also have a quest by Cameron Harold that talks about the Vivid Vision. Which brings me the third way of setting goals. Now, if you chose the goal setting way of absolute goals, so your founder or your people that you're working with goal setting only like absolute goals, you want to invite them to this dialogue. This is a subset of that. Let's say they have already predefined that the absolute goal that you want to go for is $100 million, right, in 5 years. Let's say that was the scale they want to achieve, and you are working with them to get to this place, right? So if you are working with them to get to this place, here's what you want to do. You want to say, okay, instead of just focusing on the $100 million, let's figure out what will still create success and feel like success to us as we are going on this journey, right? So, for example, first of all, if we were going to do $100 million, let's say in 5 years, what would be it in say next 1 year? So let's say that will be $10 million. Let's say this company is already doing 9 million, right? So they get to 10 million, that's about a 10% increase in their revenue, right? So they go, all right, so $10 million is what our target is. Now, what you do is you say, hey, listen, I know this is a great goal to chase for this year, but what if we also knew what was a minimum and what was an outrageous goal that would get us to kind of celebrate in the range versus at the absolute number? Because what if you got $9,900,000? Will this make you incredibly unhappy? It would if your number was 10 million. You will say, yes, 9,900,000. Wow, we got 10% increase, but we didn't hit 10 million, right? So it makes you feel disappointed a little bit, right? So what if we had a range instead of just having one goal? This technique comes from a gentleman called Raymond Aron. I studied it many, many years ago, and I've been following it ever since, right? So what we call it as MTO goals, or minimum target outrageous goals. The minimum is about 10-15% less than the target. This is depends on the companies, but generally that's how the range that I take. So let's say it was 10 million, I would make it 9.5 million minimum. It's a little bit more than 10%, it's a little more like 5% difference. But because 9 million was what they did last year, they of course won't be happy saying, oh, we'll do 9 million again, right? So minimum is 9.5 million. Outrageous might be 11 million. Now it's a range that a person is chasing. There's a range that the company is chasing. What happens with that is there's a lot more acceptance, grace, and celebration, even if you don't hit the absolute number. And that happens in the same way for if in 5 years you drove 100 million, you did 99 million or did 120 million, you would celebrate irrespective, right? Because this is still amazing. This is absolutely the target. And this is, oh my God, we surprised ourselves target, right? So instead of chasing an absolute number, an absolute goal, in which case that the company is always chasing the outrageous. They always want to hit the outrageous goal, but they will celebrate the target and they will celebrate the minimum that they have decided for themselves for them to be able to feel successful in the endeavor they were on. And it also does one thing subconsciously for the team, because you say we are always chasing the outrageous. And if you have a high performing team, they want to chase the outrageous. Is when you chase the outrageous, it creates a very different way of looking at the business versus if you're chasing the target. This is usually 10 to 20% more than what your target was. Target is something that is very realistic. Going from 9 to 10 million, very realistic for a business, about a 10% growth. Sounds fair, right? But going from 9 to 11 million is about almost 20% growth, a little over 20% growth, and feels a little bit like, oh, how would we do that? So it gets you to think differently. So it also allows for permission for you to be able to have an outrageous goal and have something that is a little bit different than what they could normally, without much trouble, actually do, which gives you an opportunity to create something that might have not been created if you didn't have the MTO goal cycle. Which brings me to the final thing or final way of setting goals that I think will change the game for you. So, this is where you don't even set goals and you invite them to set processes and progresses. So, what tends to happen is, again, when goal setting happens, it's this big number that we are chasing and it feels very impossible. It feels difficult. It feels, how would you get there? But instead, if you say, okay, to get here, I need to break down myself in every, say, monthly formats. Is month one, month two, month three, month four, month five, and in the fifth, 6 month, let's say we were to get to 6 million. Now, if I break down month one goal to be, I don't know, let's say 5 million. Sorry, it's hypothetical, right? So first goal, first month was 5 million. Then it was another. This was 6 million. This was 7 million. This was 8 million. This was 9 million, and there we've got to 10 million, right? So if that was the case, what I would do is I would say, okay, to get to this 5 million. So if this was month one, what does need to happen on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and then on a daily basis for me to get to the month one goal? So if I had to hit 5 million by this month, assuming there were a bunch of months before that, what will need to happen every single day for it to create this result? Now, when you set yourself up with every single day process, what tends to happen is you can set up a progress report for every week and see if you're actually going to hit the month, right? So it makes the team hyper focused on what's happening today and gets everybody in a state of action, including yourself, on a day-to-day basis. And guess when motivation lies? Guess where results are created? Results are created by daily action. Results are created by us getting to do the things that we said we are going to do every single day in the highest quality possible. Results happen when daily you wake up in a state of achievement and you create that achievement for yourself, right? As best as you can that day, right? And because of that, if we could set daily wins, daily progress meters, daily success endeavors that we get to make, we will find that over time, with the consistency of action every single day, we'll get to the result that we want. And we celebrate the consistency of action, not necessarily the result. Because if you set this path right, you will find that in a matter of weeks or a matter of months, you'll get to the result. What you need is, on a weekly process and a weekly progress report, is you always need to know what would you report as progress, right? On a weekly basis, not on a daily basis, right? I call it review and preview. Review and preview is where you review what happened last week and and you preview what's going to happen next week. And you try to make sure that whatever worked last week, you're bringing it to the next week. And over time, you compound the wins, right? Because let's say if you had 2 wins in week one, now you bring those wins here and you add another win here, right? Now you have 3 wins or 3 winning actions that you take. Now, next week, let's say with all the activity that you've been doing and you've been monitoring the progress, you might have 4 or 5 wins, right? So this keeps compounding and snowballing to make look each of your week a wildly successful week, because you're making progress every single week by compounding wins, and hence you're making the process so much better over time, right? So what you're really looking at, this model, it's a pretty intense model to run, but when you have large size teams, you can do this, is you have daily progress and daily process that a team has to execute, and we monitor the wins, we monitor the progress. So that's the final model for setting up goals in a way that actually will have your client win. Which of these goal setting models seems most resonant to you that you can implement right away? Which one of these feel like the right one for you to engage with your clients with? These goal setting models, the winning ones, I've tested in my own life, I've tested in my clients' businesses, and I've tested in my clients' lives. And it seems to work much, much, much better than any absolute goal setting that you might have done. Share with me which goal setting model here works for you, and I'll see you soon.